Hi guys, it's James from the Lore Masters, and today we've got a deck profile for you. It's one that we visited in the past, but now that the full set is revealed, I wanted to kind of show it to you. It's been a while since I've actually done a deck profile. The reason for that is I wanted to make sure that this deck was as strong as it could be, so I've been playtesting it a lot on Pixelborn. So now I feel it's time to kind of show you it, just so you can give it a go. So you can kind of see it on your screen now, but I'm going to go through all the cards kind of one by one, and I'll explain why it's relevant and why I've chosen certain bits. So let's swap over to the list view. Okay, here we go. So as you can see, it has 38 characters, it has 4 action cards, 14 songs and 4 items. So let's start with the characters. So Robin Hood, Unrivaled Archer. When you play this character, if your opponent has more cards than you, you draw a card, and during your turn this character gains evasive. So you're going to be spending a lot of cards while you're ramping up your ink. So chances are by the time you have got to 6 ink, you're going to have less cards in your hand than your opponent. So 9 times out of 10 you're going to be drawing a card. Also, when you pair this with a whole new world, if you play this as your first card, your opponent's going to have 7 in their hand, and you're going to have 6 because you just put this down, so you instantly draw a card, so it pairs well with that. And if you're facing against kind of an evasive strategy, it's kind of handy, but that doesn't come up too often nowadays, but it is very handy just to give you an extra draw when it comes in. Okay, so Tinkerbell, a Tiny Tactician. So it's a free drop 2/4 with 1 lore point, and has the ability you can exert this card to draw a card, then choose and discard a card. This is purely in the deck just to shift onto the giant Tinkerbell, but it is fairly useful sometimes just to discard an uninkable card in your hand and draw an inkable one, and its stat line is quite good for a free drop. If your opponent is playing an aggressive deck filled with 1 and 2 drops, especially when they're trying to rush with their lore really early, you can play this card down on turn 3 and then turn 4 punish them with a Tinkerbell, which you can use grab your sword as well, just completely board wipe them. So playing this free drop allows you to do that combo as well. Okay, so is Mickey Mouse Detective. So it's one of your ink ramp package cards. So it's a free drop uninkable. When you play this character, you may put the top card of your deck into your inkwell face down and exerted. You generally want to go play a turn 2 a 1 jump ahead, and then play this on turn 3 to ramp yourself up to 4 ink, and then you manually ink to take yourself up to 5. So it's a nice kind of fast way of ramping your ink early. So it all is part of the ramp package and you should be playing it. Okay, so Beast Hardheaded. We play 2 copies of this one. So when you play this character, you may banish chosen item. It's a 4/4 with 2 lore points. The reason why we play this character is this deck gives your opponent a lot of ink through Hades and also Let It Go. So if your opponent has got an item such as Magic Mirror or Beast's Mirror, they're going to be using that extra ink to draw cards. You do not want this to happen, so we run 2 copies of this card just to get rid of that. But it also is handy on kind of getting rid of random item cards that your opponent may be playing, something like White Rabbit's Pocket Watch, or even Lantern, something like that. It's just handy just to run something that gets rid of those items. Okay, Cerberus. So the reason why we play this card as our 5-drop rather than Maleficent is purely because of the Ruby Maui, the one that has 6/5 and Rush. So when I used to be playing Maleficent Uninvited, it would get run over by Maui a lot. Now, our matchup against Ruby is pretty bad to begin with, and that just made it even worse, the fact that you're giving away your 5-drop to their Maui. So when you use this card to sing Let It Go or A Whole New World, they're going to have to just straight up trade with their Maui to get rid of it. So it is the better thing to kind of use those to sing those songs, so that is why I'm playing Cerberus over things like Maleficent Uninvited or Aurora Dreaming Guardian, things like that, just purely because of its stat line. Okay, so 4 copies of Simba Future King. When you play this character, you may draw a card and then choose and discard a card. We run a lot of uninkable cards. We also need to try and find a whole new world very early, because our deck does kind of rely on it, because you're building up your mana base very fast, and then you're running out of cards while you're doing so, so you need to refill up your hand. So the whole point of the strategy is that you get to 5 ink, you drop a 5-cost character or a 6-cost character, and then you sing A Whole New World, draw 7, and then start playing lots of big things. Usually by that point you've got a lot more ink than your opponent, so your threats are a lot more potent than theirs. So Tinkerbell Giant Fairy, so she has Shift 4. When you play this character, deal 1 damage to each opposing characters, and during your turn, when this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may deal 2 damage to chosen opposing character. Very, very good. Pairs with Grab Your Sword as well to do 3 damage completely to your opponent's side of the board when you shift on it from a Tinkerbell. If you don't play the 3-drop Tinkerbell because you used Mickey Mouse Detective to play on turn 3, you can always ramp onto this when you've got 6 ink, and it's still a decent threat when it comes down. Especially when you drop a couple in quick succession. Very handy when you use a whole new world, because generally your opponent drops quite a wide board after they've done that, because you've just given them 7 cards, and Tinkerbell helps clear it back up. Okay, so Belle, Strange but Special. So during your turn, you may put an additional card from your hand into your inkwell face down. When you have 10 cards in your inkwell, this character gains +4 lore, going up to 5 lore. So quite important with a whole new world, because it allows you to empty your hand very quickly and put it into your inkwell. But when you're getting towards the late stages of the game, when you do have a lot of ink in your inkwell, she becomes a very potent threat. You'll find that your opponent aims all their removal at it, and not at your kind of 6 and 7 drops, because she's just that dangerous. But yeah, she's very cool. I generally don't play her on turn 4. I generally play her kind of when you're close to 10 ink, so you can quest with her the turn after she comes in. But otherwise, yeah, she gets inked fairly early. Okay, so Grandma Tala. When this character is banished, you may put this card into your inkwell face down and exerted. So ideally what you want to do is play this on turn 2. Your opponent won't want to remove it, because if they do, it's absolutely silly, they've wasted resources. And then you use this card to sing 1 jump ahead, get yourself up to 3 ink, play yourself a Mickey Mouse Detective, take yourself to 4 ink, and then you can ink 1 as well, to take yourself up to 5, and if your opponent then kills this, you go up to 6 ink on your turn. So she does ramp kind of nice and easily. She's very handy to have as part of the ramp package, because if your opponent does wipe her, then you're just increasing your ink by 1. If they don't deal with her, she's just questing away. Very, very handy. I really like this card. Okay, and for the final character is 4 copies of Hades' Infernal Schema. So he's a 7-drop uninkable, with the ability, when you play this character, you may put chosen opposing character into their player's inkwell face down. He's got 2 lore points, and he's a 3/6. So he's a let it go on a body. His stat line is not bad. It's not kind of amazing, but it is decent. So get rid of this on your opponent's annoying characters. So if your opponent's playing things like Mickey, Brave Little Tailor, it's just annoying cards, you can just get rid of it just gets rid of anything. But like I say, it does ramp your opponent, so you need to be careful with how much ink they actually have. Okay, so we'll just run 4 action cards, which is just 4 copies of Develop Your Brain. So look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put 1 in your hand, 1 on the bottom. So this is to find your combo pieces, such as your ramp cards. It's something to do on turn 1, but also when you've got a spare 1 ink available, you can kind of look for your next turn's play. But it's also quite handy when you get into late game and you top deck it, because it helps you find your action rather than you kind of just drawing into useless stuff. But very, very handy on kind of enabling plays, so do recommend playing 4 copies. Okay, so go on to the songs now. So we run 4 copies of Let It Go. Put chosen character into their player's inkwell face down and exerted. So we run lots of 5 drops, lots of 6 drops and 7 drops, so we've got lots of things to sing this with. Again, similar to Hades, it allows you to get rid of your opponent's big or annoying characters without having to deal damage to them. We can just kind of put them straight into the inkwell, which means they cannot get them back. But it's just handy because you don't have to pay any ink to play it, just need to exert your character for the turn, which is not a big deal. But yeah, it goes very, very well together with the Hades, just to clear your opponent's annoying things out of the way. But similar to the Hades, just need to be careful about how much ink you're giving your opponent, because if they're dropping bigger things or better things than you, then you can find yourself getting a little bit steamrolled out of the game. Okay, and then 4 copies of One Jump Ahead. So again, a song, a character who costs 2 or more can sing this song for free. Put the top card of your deck into your inkwell face down and exerted. So we run quite a few cards that can sing this card for free early game, or you can just play it on turn 2 with no character on board, and just develop your ink into free. So very good card, all part of the ramp package as well, and the fact it's a song as well does mean that if you do draw it late game, you can just exert one of your characters to draw a card. But we just run every single ramp card possible. just to kind of get our ink nice and high, just because it enables Bell and it enables you to drop quite a few high-level characters every single turn. And then we run 2 copies of Grab Your Sword. So character cost 5, can sing the song free, deal 2 damage to each opposing character. So use this with Tinkerbell, like I said earlier, to make a 3 damage board wipe. But it's quite nice to kind of board wipe your opponent's stuff. Or say, for example, your opponent's character has got a few health points left, you can use this kind of to board wipe. But it typically is to use against aggro, so you don't get kind of overwhelmed by their early plays. But yeah, its main combo is together with the Tinkerbell Giant Fairy. Okay, and then 4 copies of A Whole New World. So again, 5 cost song. Each player discards their hand and draws 7. So the whole point of the deck is that you chuck all your resources possible into your inkwell, drop a 5 cost character, and then sing the song. You both draw 7 and you start playing some more characters. In my opinion, it's quite important that when you sing this song, you do so at the beginning of your turn when your ink is open. Because if you play this character and spend all of your ink doing so, your opponent has then got initiative to start dropping their big things, and you're going to have to react to them. Whereas if you play this first, draw your 7, and then put your big things on board, then you have got the initiative. So you can play all your high characters, and then your opponent's going to do theirs, and then you can respond to theirs. So yeah, like I said, don't recommend kind of playing it unless you desperately need to. Just play it as the first thing and you sing it for free. But yeah, it's kind of the key point of the deck. We try to find it with our Simba, we try to find it with One Jump Ahead. Very, very useful card for Steel to have. And the last thing is Beast's Mirror. So 2-drop item, exert and pay 3 ink. If you've got no cards in your hand, draw a card. So this card is primarily in there, despite us playing 4 copies of A Whole New World, to draw cards in a very long drawn out game. So it could be a control mirror, where you're both using things like A Whole New World, or you're both drawing lots of cards, you're both using lots of removal. This is the card that's going to keep you in the game because you've got constant draw. Like I said earlier with the Beast Hardheaded, this is one of the reasons why we need to get rid of it, because if your opponent's got one of these and you don't, you're going to bleed out of resources very quickly. Okay, so that is the deck as a whole. I have played this deck to absolute death, so I know all of its good matchups and all of its bad matchups. Its worst matchup is generally anything that is using Ruby, because Be Prepared is an absolutely brutal card. Because you want to develop your board into a lot of big characters that can grow your lore very quickly, and unfortunately Be Prepared is absolutely brutal, especially when they play lots together very quickly. So against Ruby, you can't drop too many things on your board because your opponent will board wipe you. Other than that, it's got a fairly good matchup spread against the whole board. Even in a mirror, if you play right, you can generally beat them. But yeah, that is the Steel Sapphire deck as a whole. If you've got any questions about it, drop them in the comments. Please give us a like, please give us a subscribe. I'm going to be playing some gameplay that I'm going to record, so I'm going to put that on the channel shortly after. So make sure you stick around, and I'll see you next time. Bye.